Before we get into today's podcast with photographer Tommy Garcia, I wanted to tell you about a new file transfer tool I've been using lately called PicDrop. PicDrop was designed by photographers with professional photographers' needs in mind. With PicDrop, you can easily upload, archive, and share files with clients, and even create private galleries where clients can make selections, leave feedback, and download their files. Prior to PicDrop, I was using outdated platforms like Dropbox and WeTransfer. But with PicDrop, they really understand what photographers need, and I can easily access my files via mobile phone or my laptop and archive my work in one safe location. PicDrop has really helped kind of streamline my business. With today's podcast, when you sign up for PicDrop, you'll receive 3 months free of the PicDrop file transfer tool when you enter the promo code PHOTOBANTER, one word, at PicDrop.com. So definitely go check it out and let me know what you guys think. And remember to enter the promo code PHOTOBANTER, one word, when you sign up at PicDrop.com. And without further ado, we'll get into today's podcast. Welcome to the Photo Banter podcast. I'm your host, Alex Gagne, and on today's podcast, I speak with photographer Tommy Garcia. Tommy has worked with clients such as Netflix, AT&T, Beats headphones, and Fox, to name a few. In this interview, I speak to Tommy about how he first discovered photography, working as a digital tech for some of the top working photographers prior to making the jump to shooting on his own. I also speak to Tommy about how he approaches portrait shoots and his love of the Los Angeles Dodgers. Tommy is someone who has a wealth of knowledge and experience in the photography business, so I was excited to get a chance to speak with him about his journey with photography. So I hope you enjoy, and thanks so much for listening. All right, I now welcome on Tommy Garcia, aka Tommy G, aka R5 Tommy. Now, excited to have you, dude. I guess straight off the gate, I never talk gear, but we've been having so many conversations between you and a bunch of our mutual photographer friends and whatnot. You just got the R5. Tell people about it. What are you loving about it, man?
Yeah, so I definitely shit on mirrorless, especially for like professional use. I was just like, nah. Like I have an X Pro 2.
Yep.
And I love it. It's like my everyday, beat around camera. But for professional work, I just thought mirrorless, there's no way that's the answer. And then I got forced to use it on a shoot and instantly fell in love. It's just like the function. It felt like an updated version of the 5D Mark IV, which we've been waiting for since 2018 at the earliest.
Yep.
And so it just seemed like the right move. I've been telling people that the way I feel now is how I felt when Canon started discontinuing all my 35 millimeter. Actually, I got my bad boy right here. This is my Canon A2.
Damn, we're going back, 35. Dude. All right.
So that was my baby. Like I loved that camera so much. And then I just started looking around when digital first started coming out. Remember Canon had like a D10 or something. I think that was one of the, something like that. Or a D5. It was like backwards. But and I just thought, this is bullshit. These digital cameras are never gonna, compete with film, blah, blah, blah. I was wrong. And so I had that same feeling. Like, I feel like Canon is abandoning the pro 35 millimeter DSLR crowd, right?
Definitely.
And I mean, I think mirrorless is just the way it's going. And that sensor, like dynamic range is better. The autofocus is damn near cheating, which I'm, cheat to win. I'm here for that. But yeah, man, it's, we'll see what happens. I think there's probably, I've been saying like, I think the R5 is dope and I'm glad I got it, but the next one is going to be the 5D Mark IV, like replacement. It's done, game over. That's what people will be shooting with and stuff that I do.
Yeah, cameras are fucked, man. Like, I can't even imagine what cameras are going to be like in another 5 or 10 years from now, because it's like, whatever fucking camera you get now, the technology of it is like insane. Like, I don't even know.
This thing, if autofocus is for you, basically, I mean, it literally the setting is like, hey, just relax. I got this. That's the setting. And you're like, I mean, it's great. I feel like I've paid my dues. And so now I'm like, oh, I deserve to like relax on autofocus. But then, there's like some youngins coming up that are like, they're never going to know the struggle of missing focus on like your favorite shot ever,
Yeah, man, that's always the worst when like portrait wise, if you're trying to get the eyeball tack sharp and then it's right under the eyelid, and it's like
Or
motherfucker.
right
It's like
here.
yeah, dude. Yeah, dude, it's brutal.
I got this photo. I got this photo of Tom Brady that I took when I shot him, and he just get it right. Let me get right into name dropping.
Yep.
And so this dude, like, he basically does is like, let's fucking go. And so, but he like charges me, right? And I'm just like, da, 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 da. And the best frame is Tom Brady like, out of focus.
Damn, you couldn't even save it in Photoshop, a little sharpen it. It was just too much. Yeah, there's like, yeah, there's only so
It's
much.
like the ear is tack
Oh
sharp.
fuck, yeah, yeah, I might throw it in the trash. How was Tom Brady to work for? Because you shot him a couple of times, right?
Dude, he is. I honestly thought going into it, I was going to hate him. And that's just because of football and like Patriot. Not that I hate the Patriots because I don't have like a rival team. It's just like I got sick of seeing him winning,
Yeah, yeah.
And fast forward to this year where he won again. But I don't know why I thought I wasn't going to like him, or I thought maybe he'd be like kind of standoffish or whatever. One of the nicest, most like respectful of everybody else's time, professional dude. He was like 10 minutes early to set and he left like 5 minutes after his heart out. And anything you wanted him to do, just ask. He pretty much said that too. Like, basically, tell me what to do, give me direction, and I'm yours.
Damn.
And it was a dream, dude. It was one of my favorite shoots, honestly, I think I've ever done.
Is that something like being that you shoot like a lot of like entertainment and celebrity work? Is that something you kind of have to like kind of go into the shoot now with like preconceived notions like what the person's going to be? Because like as you know, you hear about celebrities like this person's like that and this person's like that. Do you try to kind of go in with like an open mind, or like how do you approach that, being that you shoot like well-known people, I guess?
Yeah, I definitely go in with an open mind, especially because I don't know, I'm a people person, right? Like I like to connect, and I feel like I can do it pretty easily. I'm also kind of like a chameleon in a way where I can sort of adapt. I grew up in this like, I'm Mexican, but I look white, and so it's like I could get real Mexican real fast, Holmes. You know what I'm saying? Like if I need to, but like I don't know. It's a weird ability. Borderline sociopathic, but I like to like try to connect with my subject, especially when I need to make good photos of them. I don't need them to be my best friend. I just need them to, sort of accept our give and take relationship. And so I definitely go into it with an open mind, and also knowing that, I worked when I was a digital tech man, I worked with a ton of photographers, and we would work with the same celebrity, different photographers. And then you would see completely different personalities day to day. And so it's like, they're people just like us. They have bad days, they have good days. And so, you kind of I don't really judge until you've been around them like, 5, 6,
That's
7 shoots. And then when it's like, they're always an asshole. Like that's okay. Got it.
Yeah. It comes with it comes with the territory, and yeah, you just gotta grind through it, I guess. But I guess to go back, man, like where do you grow up? Like how do you kind of initially pick up a camera, I guess?
Yeah. So, it's funny. I was actually thinking about it when you and I first started talking about doing this. And I was like, I like my origin story is kind of wild, actually. I don't tell it very often. So it's kind of cool to say this. But so basically, I grew up in Huntington Beach and never held a camera my entire, childhood. The first time I picked up a camera was in 2001.
Okay.
So at that time I was 19 years old. And basically what happened was a really good friend died in a car accident. It was like super tragic. He was 18 on our way to out to Havasu, and head-on collision, man. The big.
You were in the car too?
No. But so tragic death, right? Like life flipped upside down kind of stuff. Especially when you're that young. I don't know, it hits like so hard.
Definitely.
And so, we were super bummed out, and my best friend's dad is a photojournalist. He was shooting for like Truckin' Magazine and like, Rod and Custom, all these car magazines. And I always loved his job because he would take us to car shows all the time. And he was always, had this big old camera bag around his shoulder. And so anyway, he saw me and Casey kind of sitting around being just super depressed, and was like, I got an idea. Like, here are these passes to the NASCAR race in Fontana out here. And I secretly like low key love like racing, NASCAR, Formula One. I love it. And so he's like, here's my passes, but you know, you got to pretend basically to be a photographer, because they were all access photographer press passes.
Wow.
So he's like, you know, just strap the camera around your shoulder. You don't have to, you don't need, you know, don't worry about it. And so I was like, you know what though? Like, I got this camera. I've never used this thing. Big ass camera, lenses and all this. And he had like, you know, 30, 40 boxes of film for each of us.
Wow.
And so I was like, you know what, I'll give it a try. And so I loaded the film, and you know, my first shot is hilarious, because you're just like, what a dork. Basically, I had this telephoto zoom lens, and there was these two like kind of like smoking hot girls on a railing, right? But there's a chain link fence in front of me.
Yeah.
And I zoomed in, and I was like, oh my God, the chain link fence disappeared. Like, and so I just zoomed in, I took this picture, and I still have it. It's a slide film. I have the slide, and it's the first photo I ever took. And it's like this creepy voyeur. I'm just shooting hot chicks from a distance. And so, yeah, man, so I go through the day and I burn, like, no joke, 30 rolls of film.
Wow. That's a lot.
Just spraying, man.
Okay.
And I was so obsessed with the fact that the shutter could go so high. I was like 8,000th of a second. Like, so I'm shooting NASCAR, boom, 8,000th of a second. You know, I'm like, so stoked, can't wait to get this film back.
None of it
8,000th of a second, frozen solid car, looked parked, you know?
Yeah.
Because I had no idea what I was doing.
Yeah, man.
And so the next day, literally the next day, I went and bought my first camera. And it was the like Andre Agassi edition Rebel, Canon Rebel.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, Agassi had his like flowing locks on the cover and all that stuff. Yeah, so, and I kind of never looked back, man. I went to community college down there, OCC, which is a insane program, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like your first classes, like, you know, intro to photography, they're basically like, here's a 4x5 camera. Like,
damn,
we're not doing, I mean, I don't know what they're doing now, but that back then it was like, yeah, it's 4x5 or get out of here. And so I just like, it was one of those things where I picked up the camera that day on that NASCAR race, and everything just made sense. You know, I kind of like, I never looked back after that day. It's just, it's always been like, nope, this is what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I wanted to be Bob Ryder, my buddy's dad. Like, I wanted to be the guy who went to the car shows and shot all the cars, you know?
Damn, is Bob still out there shooting?
Oh yeah. You know, I think he's working at like a car body shop now, like building like old, like hot rods and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's, you know, that was my photography Yoda.
Yeah. LA is interesting. There's just like such a, like that culture of car culture. There's so many different types, like the lowriders, and then there's this, like, I know, talking to that guy Peter, we talked to on Clubhouse.
Yeah, Pete,
and he's all about it. Yeah, it seems like LA, Southern California, there's this huge culture of like cars and whatnot, I guess.
Yeah, it's crazy, and you're right, because it's like the whole spectrum of like, you know, the Porsche crowd, and then there's the, I guess, the lifted truck crowd, and
yeah, there's a lot of that in California. I noticed that when I went out the road. I was like, what's with all the fucking trucks? It's like,
I know
you guys don't even have snow, or like, no. It's just like paved road.
Well, the worst too is when you see like a crazy lifted truck, but it's not a 4x, right? So you're just like, wait, you got this huge lift on a rear wheel or a rear wheel drive truck, like that.
Yeah, man.
But yeah, so then I transferred to Cal Poly San Luis Obispo.
Damn.
Which Central Coast, California, dead center of the state, basically, if anybody's not familiar. And you know, just that's when I actually think I discovered that I preferred shooting people, like portraiture. They had studios, and since I was already an upperclassman when I transferred in, I had access to the studios, and the guy who ran the program at the time, this guy Kurt Brown, who's like a legend in the Central Coast, he liked me, thankfully, and I got all the studio time. You know, I'd go in at like 10 p.m. and just shoot portraits or whatever. And all that practice, I feel like, is, you know, because like most of the kids in the program were kind of like, you do the assignment, and then, you know, you go party or whatever. And I took it a little more seriously. I really was like, so into learning more about like lighting and what worked and what didn't work that I just kept playing.
Oh, that's awesome. As like working in the studio, is that something you've always kind of enjoyed? I mean, looking at your work now, you do a mix of both, like environmental and studio. But what is it about like the kind of studio work that you enjoy, you think?
I mean, just controlling the light is my favorite thing, and just seeing what it'll do. Like, oh, if you take this and pull it back, what it'll look like versus if you like put it way forward. What if you double diffuse it? What if you triple diffuse it? What if you no diffuse it? You know, what if you cut it over here? And I don't know. I just like I love that stuff so much. That's like when I was a digital tech working for guys like Art Stryber, right? Like, it was like kid in a candy store for me because Art was always, Art didn't have like he doesn't have like a go-to lighting setup, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where it was like I felt like every shoot was different, and so we were always getting to experiment, and Art was really good when his assistants had input or something. It was like, well, I don't know, let's try it.
Yeah.
And so I definitely like took that from him, where I still do that. It's like I know what I want to do, I know how I want to light a job, but like if you were on a job, my assistant, like if you were on a job and you saw something and it worked really well, like let me know and let's try it.
Yeah. Bring
so
something
yeah,
to
always.
it.
Yeah, I don't want to ever think that like I know how to do it and like this is the only way, because there's a million ways to do it.
Yeah, we were talking about that the other day, how like someone was like, yeah, I don't want to hire someone who like knows more than me. And you were like, hell no, dude, I want my assistants and digital techs to be smarter than me. And that's like, that's the truth, man. You want those people to have your back if shit hits the fan.
Yeah, what's that? There's like a saying, right? It's like if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room.
Yeah.
I mean, that's my philosophy. It's like, no, let's like group think this. I mean, I want to be the point person, right? Like I want to be the one the client looks to for information. I want to be the one the talent looks to for direction. But like outside of that, it's teamwork. You need your crew to be on their game.
Yeah, definitely. And when you're going to school, like, did you kind of have a goal in mind for already at that point? Like what you wanted to do was like entertainment and like the kind of stuff you're doing now, kind of always the dream, or what did you think you were going to be doing?
I think so, man. I feel like as soon as I got to Cal Poly, it was like I started looking at movie posters in a way where I had never really cared before. Like you just drive by them, like whatever, especially here, like in Southern California and Los Angeles, they're everywhere. And it's just like, whatever. But then once I became a photographer, I started looking at them like, oh shit, how the hell did they do that? I bet they did the light here. And then, and then there's these rims, because everything is rim lit, especially back then. And so I started practicing with that kind of stuff. And then, I discovered Jill Greenberg's work right when I was in college, because she was like blowing up then. And then when I graduated, she was the first photographer I worked for.
Damn, that's a pretty good person to start with.
Yeah, man. I was out here, like I always tell the story, like I was emailing people, photographers, like, hey, I'd love to work with you. And I would word it in a way where I would say like, hey, I'm a photographer, here's my website, like they care. And I would love to work with you so I could, stupid shit, like so I could learn the business from you, and then I emailed somebody, and then a friend kind of mentioned to me like, maybe make it about them, maybe like tell, because nobody was responding. And so they're like, maybe make it about them and like how you want to help their team, not about you,
I will get you coffee. I will do clean your studio.
Right. And it was, so the email I wrote to her was like, I said in the email, I said, I really want to assist or intern for you. And she wrote back and said, I want you to be very clear. Do you want to assist or do you want to intern? And I was like, I want to assist. And she was like, all right, like next Tuesday, I have a shoot. Are you available? And it just happened to work out because her normal assistant just decided to quit the industry and become a sommelier up in Napa. So she was like, kind of like, it was like just perfect timing. Like my email came in right when her other assistant said he's out. And so I did my first day with her, had no idea what I was doing. Dom Desaya, sorry. Dom was the other assistant on that job. And I came in just fully bullshitting my way, fake it till you make it, and he's like, hey man, you mind setting up the Okta? And I was like, oh dude, yeah, totally got it. And I'm like on my phone, my iPhone, like the first iPhone, right? And I'm like, how do you open an Okta bank? I had no clue. We didn't have Okta banks at Cal Poly, right?
Yep.
So I'm like I'm opening it. I'm like trying to like, it's just not working. And I'm like, and he comes over like, is everything you good? And I was like, fucking thing's broken, man. It's broken. I don't know. Maybe we should get another one. And then he just grabs it and is like, click. No, it's good. And I was like, oh, dude, I must have. Yeah, my bad.
Yeah, so but that's how you learn. Like I had all those situations are starting out. Even sometimes you're just trying to like pick up then you go home after that shoot and you do all the research you can to like figure out what skills you need, and it's just like building blocks. Yeah, man, I remember sweating like same shit. Like when they ask you to get some weird piece of grip, like get a Cardellini clamp. I'm like,
like what? Yeah, and then like the assistants will fuck with you if you're young, super new, and be like, yeah, hey, go run in the grip room, grab a bag of f-stops.
Yeah,
and you're just like. All right. Or like see if they have any flux capacitors. We just need one.
Yeah.
And you just like, you can mess with people that way pretty easy. But, luckily that shoot went really well. Dom was like super cool and is still like, I consider him one of the homies by far today. And that's kind of wild that like that shoot. I remember, and the digital tech on the job was this girl named Jamie Beecham. Mm-hmm. And Jamie has like, she moved out of LA and all that stuff. And I haven't talked to her in a while, but she worked at Digital Fusion. And I remember that day just being like, I didn't know what a digital tech really was. Right. And so I was like on set, like looking at what she was doing. And I was like, man, that's the move right there. Like the digital stuff, like I'm a computer dork. I love this, like I'm here for that. And so over time I started like kind of gradually gearing myself towards wanting to do digital, but Jill then I think she might have gone on vacation or something happened where it was like work wasn't coming in and she was really the only photographer I was working for. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, well, I can't afford to not work. So I went to Digital Fusion and said, hey, I want to be a tech. And they were like, are you familiar with Capture One? And I was like, oh yeah.
Fake it till you make it, baby.
Yeah, Capture 1 and 2, bro. All the captures. And so they're like, all right, come in tomorrow. We want to like talk to you. And I literally downloaded Capture One that night, connected it to my whatever I had at the time, 5D Mark II, I think was the camera. And was just, it was back when Capture One was like the light gray, like white interface. And then, that's how long ago. And just learn. I try to teach myself tethering Capture One. And then they kind of gave me like a little, feel me out, right? And the first shoot they put me on as a test was ArchDriver.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. So my first day on set as an assistant lighting is with Jill Greenberg, and my first day on set as a digital tech is ArchDriver.
Damn. Were you like nervous? Were you nervous going into that first digital tech job with Striver, or you're this like?
I was much more nervous about that than with Jill's, but also I was lucky that it was actually a test for art. Like he was trying to do some work for like Men's Fitness or Men's Health or something, and wanted to give them like some cover options and stuff like that. So it was a relatively low stress day. Yeah. But I was still like, I was super nervous, but that's me. It's like when I'm nervous, it's all inside. Nobody will ever know. It's like cool as a cucumber on the outside. And that's what a lot of photographers, I think, when I was a digital tech liked about me. Like I wasn't the best digital tech. I wasn't like, your exposure is like, 4 stop. It's like, I was just like, look, are the photos coming in? Are they sharp? And does it look good? Yeah. What else, you know what I mean? Like I'm not reading numbers. I don't care if it's 242 or whatever that means.
No.
So started at Digital Fusion.
And for people listening, what is Digital Fusion? Because people not living in LA, like what is Digital Fusion? Like what do they do? For sure.
Yeah, and there's plenty of companies like that too, right? Like Industrial Color and all that stuff. So they're basically just digital tech companies where they hire out either salaried or freelance digital techs, and they own all the equipment. Mm-hmm. it's not so much the model anymore. Now I feel like a lot of digital techs are just like, well, just make the investment in the gear and it'll pay itself off.
Mm-hmm.
But like back then, we're looking at like, $60,000 digital backs and stuff like that. And it was just like, I didn't want that overhead, nor could I probably handle it at the time. But yeah, so it was a great place for me to start, because I never really wanted to make any career decisions based on being a digital tech. That was kind of my philosophy, was like, if I start a digital tech company,
mm-hmm.
I'm gonna be a digital tech like for a long time. And I wanted to shoot. So working at Digital Fusion was awesome, to be able to not have that overhead and, get paid.
Yep.
But also, I was on set as an assistant and a digital tech, like, and the photographers I was working for, we're on set with some of the craziest stuff from time to time, right? You're like, one day you're working on a shoot and you're shooting Obama, and then the next, week you're shooting Beyonce or something. It's just like, and so through other photographers, I kind of got to get rid of some of that like anxiety and stress, because you're like, all right, this is a big deal, but it's not my shoot.
Yep.
So you're like, and then you see the day play out and you're like, okay, that was a little stressful, but like everything is good. And so that was, so people who come into the industry who never assisted, I'm always just like, damn, you must have nerves of steel, because if I just got thrown into the fire like that, I mean, that would have scared the hell out of me.
Yeah.
But to get that experience on somebody else's dime, basically, was pretty incredible.
And I bet I would imagine you made so many different contacts within the business that probably helped you a lot, like when you broke off on your own, right?
Totally. I mean, when I looked at the digital tech, when I was an assistant, lighting assistant, I was looking at the digital tech, and I was always like sweating, dirty, with gloves on, and nowhere near the client usually, because it's like, hey, stand over there and watch that pack, whatever. And then I was looking at the digital tech, like, wait a minute, like, you're dressed really nice, you smell lovely, and you're shoulder to shoulder with the client. Like, that's where I want to be. And so that's what I did. And having the clients, and you build a rapport with them. And, and the funny thing is, like, how, I don't know, there's a lot of bitter people in this industry, and the industry's small, right? So they talk a lot. And so I hear stories all the time, like, dude, Tommy like pulled his portfolio out on set. And I'm just like, bro, I didn't have a portfolio. So like, like a printed portfolio, like, what are you talking about? Like, but like, you're at lunch or something and the client's like, Tommy, like, what have you been up to? What you been shooting anything? And you're like, I shot this thing, They're like, oh, let me see. And like, at that point, what are you supposed to say? Like, absolutely not, sir. I need you to stop talking to me.
Have an NDA.
Like, fucking grow up, like, yeah, don't show don't, hey, excuse me, can I borrow, like, can I give you a portfolio, do my portfolio review, and while we're on,
here's my
like,
promo card.
it's just like, the attitudes and the bitterness. It's like, guys, come on, there are rules, there are unwritten rules, and I don't feel like I ever really crossed the line. And if I did, I'm sorry, but cheat to win. And
I love it, Tommy. I love it.
I mean, I'm sorry. Like, I didn't grow up with money, and I don't have any famous friends. So I'm out here, I'm fighting alone, and I'm scrappy, and I'll, kind of do what it takes to win. I don't
100%. Know. Yeah, because we're all this independent contractors, hired guns. So it's just like, you gotta use anything you can, like, to get your foot in the door somewhere and make some contact with somebody. And man.
And if the client's like asking you and talking to you, or whatever, I feel like it's even worse if you like wait till the job's over and then send the email like, hey, lovely working with you. By the way, here's my work. I don't know. I felt like that was even like, that was worse than if they say, hey, what have you been up to, or whatever. I don't know. And I see it with my digital tech, this kid that I brought into the industry and started training. And, I'm watching his career basically play out like mine, which is wild. But unlike some of the photographers I was working for who were bitter about that and like, basically ghosted me as soon as I started shooting, I'm like, that's wrong, man. That's not cool. if he steals a job from me, because that's how people word it, which is such bullshit. If he gets a job that I don't, good for him. And also, like, I feel like I'd rather have my people, my crew moving up than, if that client went and hired somebody I'd never heard of before.
Yeah, man.
And so it's weird people don't see it that way, but
I think it's like, I think people, it's like, I kind of view it as like some people play offense and some people play defense. Like the people that are on defense, they don't want to, like, they won't even tell you what they're shooting, who they work with. Like I know plenty of people like that who are super guarded, which I get it. But I think like, I'm more like, I'll share whatever information I got. I'll tell people how much I made, who I worked with. And I think you're not going to win every job. That's just the name of the game. You're not going to get every job that comes your way. But if you have a good network of people that you're helping, it kind of bounces back and forth. I'm sure you get referrals from friends that you might have assisted for back in the day or people you worked with. And it kind of goes both ways, I think.
Yeah, man. And like, and I remember, so I worked for this car photographer at the end of my digital teching career. This guy, Anton Watts, right?
Yep.
Just like legendary car. He's amazing. And one of the nicest human beings, funniest guys on the planet. And, he basically did the arm around the shoulder and just like, look, kid, like, I want, if you're going to go out and shoot, you need to know what you're worth. And, so he was like very open with me about money, how much to bill, how much he was billing, and you'd hear numbers and you're just like, I get why a lot of photographers are guarded about it, especially like with their assistants. Cause you're just like, I know that you're only making $350 today and I'm making 10,000. But let's be friends. I get it. Like but it's like, yo, this is how the industry works. Right. And so Anton was very like telling me what he was making, we'd do a week-long job or something in Europe. And it's like, he's making how much money compared to me? But it was like, what, like, I didn't take it as like, what an asshole. I took it as like, that's awesome. I'm happy to know that
you can get there. You can get there.
Possibility, right? Yep. Like, oh my,
yep.
I can't even, half of that would have like blown my world at that time, for one job. And so, yeah, but it was weird when I was checking for all the entertainment guys, they were so guarded about rates. Nobody talked about money. It was very taboo. And like you just said, I'm pretty open, like when we're on Clubhouse and stuff. And like, I've had people just straight up ask like, hey, how much, like when you did that job, like, what did you bill? And I'm just like, this much.
Well, the funniest thing is because like people can be guarded, but for the most part, like everyone's getting paid. Like if you, whatever genre of photography you're in, you're going to get paid somewhat similar rates, like in the ballpark, unless you're like at some crazy level and you're getting more. So it's like, what's there to fucking hide, dude? Like,
yeah. And if anything, it's like, let's make sure that people aren't like unintentionally undercutting, right? Yeah. Like people say, oh, they're undercutting and it's race to the bottom all the time. And it's like, yeah, there is something there, but it's also like some people just don't know. And so if you're used to making 350, 400 a day, and then a client is like, hey, we got to shoot for you, but it's 2,500. You're like, I mean, 2,500 compared to 350 is like, holy crap, hell yeah. When in reality, that shoot should have actually been billed at, 7,500 or something. And so if people know knowledge is power, if they know what they should be charging, I feel like it's only a win-win as far as like the industry goes, because I like doing this, man, and I don't want it to become something that's unsustainable because the rates are so low.
Yeah, and I think we've been having a discussion for weeks now about usage. Like a lot of people don't, and it comes back to this: their education and knowledge of the business side of things is like usage is a very important thing. So you don't just want to be like selling your stuff out like a buyout every time. Sure, there's certain situations where a buyout is like good if they want to write that fat check, but like knowing usage and understanding your value as a photographer, that's what's gonna, I don't know, hopefully keep this career path moving.
Yeah. I mean, it's your, if you have the copyright, if you're the author, all that stuff, it's like, that there's power in that. I mean, a lot of the stuff I shoot is buyout, entertainment network stuff. And so I'm happy to collect that money, but very jealous of a lot of my friends who shoot maybe more editorial and own, those images.
Yeah.
That's I'm very jealous of that.
Yeah, it's a case by case thing because the stuff you're doing is so particular to like a TV show or something. Like,
Right.
I would imagine there's not like a lot of uses to like license that down the road unless it was like for that show. So it kind of doesn't. And
Yeah,
that's
I'll get hit up if like a cast member from a show does something illegal, or they're like, hey, can we buy these images? And I'm just like, nah, sorry, like,
yeah.
refer them back to the network.
Yeah, man. Who I know, one story I had to tell for the podcast. You told me, but you got to work for Martin Scholler, amazing photographer. How was that kind of experience getting to work for him? Did you kind of work on a bunch of shoots with him, or how's that experience?
So it was really just one big project. It was like a network. They call them like Mondos. It's basically when the networks do sort of a overall rebranding or branding campaign.
Yeah.
And they just try to get all their talent together and do something a little cohesive for once. And so we were doing this Mondo, and it was like, it lasted a while. I think it was like stretched over 2 or 3 weeks. And they wanted the like Martin Scholler look, but it was with digital. And I don't think he does it.
It's all like RZ pretty much, I think.
And so we were shooting Hasselblad with a phase 1 back. And, I don't know if this is true or not, but it felt like it might've been the first time he had shot his look digital, like for a job digitally. Yep. Like I'm sure he messed around with it or something, but it was weird, man. It was like, I felt like I was like there to hurt him or something. You know what I mean? Like I was there to like hurt his feelings a little bit because he just, he felt like maybe that wasn't the medium for his look. But it was one of the coolest experiences of my career because I looked up to him so much as a photographer. And he did. I remember him giving me this one little tidbit that was like something about always shooting. Like he was asking me about what I shoot, like zooms or primes, right? And I was telling him like basically I was all zooms, and he was just like, just buy yourself a 50 millimeter camera, or sorry, a 50 millimeter lens, and just try to only shoot with that. Just whatever your next shoot is or whatever, just make that prime lens work for every situation.
Yeah.
And I did, and it was super fun. It was like, hearing somebody like him tell you that, I'd be like Michael Jordan was telling you how to fix your free throw. Like you're going to do whatever it is he says. It was a super cool experience, and it was short lived because I wasn't his main digital tech.
Yeah,
I think it was. That's what sucks sometimes when you're working as a digital tech for those big companies is networks will tend to demand you on shoots, right? Like Fox, for example, has a contract or whatever with Digital Fusion where only Digital Fusion techs.
Wow.
Yeah. And so what sucks about that is like you basically come on set as the enemy. Like you're already like the photographer, the assistants are basically like, we didn't want you here, they wanted you here. And so like
that's tough because they got their right hand guy who's been part of the crew for like 10 years sometimes, and then he can't come. And that's gotta be, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, man. And and once I became a shooter, it was like that would happen to me sometimes, and it could be frustrating. But for the most part, everybody kind of knows what they're doing. Like I'll get like a lot of industrial color, which I think is like going to be Smashbox Digital now or something. Mm-hmm. But I get a lot of those guys forced on me, and in the beginning, and I kind of hated it. But then you learn to love them, and like they're awesome. Like I really don't think it's that big of a deal anymore. But when I was a tech, I think it was a little bit more sensitive. And it sucks because it is like it's your you want your crew on your job, you want your team. So getting forced to work with people, there was a lot of headbutting going on with certain photographers that like, and I had a few people straight up tell me like, you're only here because they because they want, that's how they start the day, right?
Dude, why gotta be a dick, man? Just roll with the punches, man.
Like if it makes you feel any better, I don't want to be here either, guy.
Yeah, man.
But yeah, man, that was always a trip to be forced onto a set and like just seen as like I'm trying to be a part of your team, but you hate me. So that's that's odd.
And then how did you kind of? This is obviously a struggle for a lot of people that get into assisting or digital teching who have dreams of shooting. Like, how do you kind of start making that transition to shooting your own work? What was that kind of process for you, I guess?
Yeah. So, kind of interesting strategy, I guess I had, it wasn't even totally planned, but it just worked out this way. Was I started shooting these little tiny jobs, right? Like, a client I'd be on set with, for NBC Universal or something. They'd be like, hey, like, we have this like really tiny shoot that the photographer, whoever I was working for, was like, we have a tiny shoot. They're not going to want it. Like, would you be interested? Hell yes. Of course, all the petty people would be like, no, that was disrespectful. You should have said no to that. Like, what? Get the fuck out of here.
Why would they say no? Because they weren't paying enough, or like,
I don't know. Yeah, or because like you got offered on like while you're on somebody else's shoot, or I don't know. There's like, it's just like, dude, well, tell the client
you
then.
got to take any opportunity you can get.
Yeah, like if they're offering something, I'm gonna take it.
Yeah.
And so anyway, so I started shooting off some really small stuff. I think the first thing I shot professionally, really, like for money, decent money, I should say, was Ghost Hunters.
Okay.
For sci-fi.
Yep.
Yeah, it was, so then you take that and then you show it to my, people I knew at Fox, like, hey, I just shot Ghost Hunters, check this out. And sort of like start to build up the shoots that way. And then though, because here's what sucked, right? Is like I was digital teching and shooting. So there was a moment where I shot a job for Fox. I think it was Glee. And then I was teching for Fox like a week later.
Yeah.
So it was really awkward for me to be like, I'm the photographer on Glee, and like, here I am, and look, and everybody, yeah, it looks great, awesome work. And then to have them see me back like, hi, I'm a digital tech. Files are sharp. Here's your hard drive.
Yeah.
It was disheartening for me, honestly. It felt like one step forward, one step back. Like I was just in neutral. And so then I had already met Anton and was kind of like, you know what, maybe I should just tech for him, because he was so busy that I was like, if I just work for him, it'll keep me off of the entertainment sets. And then I can sort of, so the clients I want to shoot for wouldn't see me as a tech anymore. But I was still, because I needed the money.
No, that's smart. Yeah, because you could take the time to market your work to the clients you want to work with, and then still get paid and keep living by working on this other stuff. Yeah, man.
And then like on my Instagram, it's like, oh, I'm in Madrid. Like, oh, I'm in New York. I'm in, but I was with Anton. But like they might not have known that.
Yeah.
And so so it was a weird strategy, but it was basically like I needed to get away. The more people see you as the assistant and as the digital tech, the harder it is to break out of that. I mean, I still think there's some clients that still view me when they hear my name or see me or whatever, that it's Tommy, the digital tech.
Yeah. And that's crazy because I mean, your body of work speaks for itself at this point. You shot all these amazing shows and stuff. So it's like, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, sometimes it's hard getting over that hurdle, but like how are you, like early on, like were you doing anything to like market your work? Like did you have a printed portfolio, or like were you going to meet with people, or was it more just kind of word of mouth from people you kind of had met during your years of like assisting and stuff?
Yeah, I mean, it's so eventually I printed like a book off of like Blurb or something, right? Like I've always been pretty bad at having like a printed book. Has not been my strong suit. And I remember taking it to a place I really, really wanted to shoot for my whole life, and still to this day, ESPN magazine. And the person that I met with there, she tore me a new one on my meeting. I mean, she really like, man, I mean, basically almost word for word said, you have no business being here right now. Yeah. And to be fair, she was 100% right. Like my work was at the time nowhere near ready. I just, you hear like, oh, well, if you want to work for these companies, you need to have a meeting, and I just thought like, oh, I'll win her over with my award-winning personality and she'll hire me. No. And so that was like a huge ego blow, but I needed it, and I actually emailed her. She never wrote me back, but I emailed her and said recently and said, I just wanted to thank you. I don't even know if you remember this meeting, but I want to thank you for sort of that actually kind of redirected and put me on a better path, I think, for my career, just to know that, like, it's not all personality. Work does matter, even though it's not who it's or it's not what it's who I mean, that is a thing, right? But like, dude, the work has to be there. And so I think she sort of stopped me in my fake it till you make it tracks. And I thanked her for it, and I mean it. Like, I don't care if she doesn't respond or like, whatever, it's fine.
Because like at that point, like, what was in your portfolio, and like, why do you think it was like not a good match? It just wasn't the type of work that they were producing, or like, it's just two different kind of styles.
It wasn't terrible work, right? But it's like, it wasn't at the level of ESPN magazine, that's for sure. There was like a great portrait of my, like, at the time he was like 4 years old, my nephew, in there, which is a great photo, but it's like, this isn't like, this should not be in your professional photography portfolio.
Yeah, you want like a cohesive body of work, pretty much, right?
Yeah, and it was all over the place, and it was also very like network entertainment geared, because that's what I had been shooting the most of. Like, that was kind of interesting about my career too, is that I started shooting network galleries, whereas most photographers will start shooting editorial. You start shooting for smaller magazines and then bigger magazines, and then you get, and I kind of went backwards, where I was like, I had all these entertainment clients, and I was just dying for editorial clients, and everybody's like, well, it doesn't pay. And I'm like, I don't care, it doesn't pay. That's what, like, you get to shoot really cool shit. You own the photos. And there's a little bit more like artistic, you can like express yourself a little bit better than like on the network shoots. A lot of times it's just like, hey, here's what we're shooting, and shoot it. No, I was going to ask you about that, because something you mentioned a lot when talking over the last few weeks is you talk about these things called like gallery shoots. And I was just kind of curious, like, what is a gallery shoot? Because it's like not a world I live in, but I know you've kind of talked a little bit about it. That's like something you do, I guess. Yeah. So galleries basically usually consist of publicity and key art. So for any television show, usually it's television, that's what I'm working on, they'll have a gallery where you shoot portraits of the talent on either seamless or in a situation environment, and they'll be used then in like, entertainment weekly, People magazine, stuff like that. And so it's like the publicity, the key art, sometimes it's spread out between two photographers too, right? That's kind of how I got my start, really, is like, they're like, hey, we have this photographer who's shooting this key art, but we need somebody to shoot the publicity.
Okay.
And sometimes one photographer does it, sometimes two. But yeah, so that's really a gallery, and it's usually like there's a pre-light day where you test all the lights and mock up maybe you comp something together to make it look like the final result, so that way the clients can see it, or I don't know, just a full pre-light day is usually kind of mandatory on these galleries. A lot of times it's rough when you have to light and shoot the gallery in the same day. You end up running into like a lot of overtime, and especially if there's set builds, it's rough. But the full network galleries are run through all the cast members. I remember like when I shot Glee, I think there was like 25 or 26 cast members.
Wow.
And you're doing like, oh, we need a portrait for advertising, and we need a portrait for publicity of all these cast members. And I mean, it's just, that camera is like glued to your hand that day. I just
so with this luckily we're looking at this issue right here. People can hop on YouTube and watch. You can see it. But like, would this be considered kind of like a gallery shoot, pretty much, for like this show?
It was a little bit an unconventional shoot, because it was like, we were at this house, and it was like, whenever we got one of the girls, it was like, okay, take them over there, find a different place to shoot them. And so, and then this was more used like publicity and key art at the same time, which totally happens. And
then something like this, like Top Chef, this thing, this is interesting. So I'm guessing, like, looking at a lot of the work, I guessing like a lot of it's composites sometimes for these like key art stuff, right? Like something like this where it's top
Yeah.
shelf. Like this is probably a plate, right?
Yeah, totally. And and sometimes they work and sometimes they don't work. This one might be somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
But and after you shoot it, like, yeah, we shot them in a studio, and we put the grass in the foreground at least, and
Mm-hmm.
everything in the foreground is there. And
Mm-hmm.
then all of the trees and all that stuff in the background were all comped in. But once you shoot it, man, it's like it's out of your hands, and you just you hope for the best. And the most disheartening thing though is when you shoot something like on a gray seamless and
Yep.
then it gets run on gray seamless and you're like, oh man, like,
Yeah,
it's
man.
just because then you're like not super stoked to put it in your because if all you have is seamless work in your portfolio, it's like it just gets a little monotonous, a little soul sucking.
Mm-hmm.
But when they work, when the comps work, it's killer. Like the Orville was one that I just remember being like, that was that really came together more or less like how we wanted it to. Some of the Gotham stuff was super cool. um but yeah, it just depends on the budget that they have for their retouching, for the ad buy, where's it going to run, and
Because
if you get on a good one.
what's that relationship like? Yeah, because when you're doing these things where it's like composites and you're shooting it and then it gets passed down the line, is there like a lot of times is there a conversation with the retouchers beforehand to make sure they get what they need, or is it more you're kind of the shooting it and they kind of just run wild with it? What's that kind of?
Yeah, I'd say for the most part, it's you shoot it and then hand it off, and you pretty much have no say. But there's been a few times, like there was this when I shot Orville. One of the shots that we did was it was like on a black background. It was a really tight portrait of the characters,
Yep.
and I had told the client that like, hey, like I want to shoot this certain way, but like it actually requires kind of a retouching technique to really pull it off and make it look the way I want. And she was super cool and was like, oh, okay, great, like we'll outsource that retouching to you then. And it doesn't always go that way, but that was super cool to be able to have control over that. I kind of wish it would happen more often, and then I kind of don't, because
Yeah, because it's more work. It's a
it's a
lot
lot of work.
more work.
I have so much respect for like professional. I'm a good retoucher, like I'm good, but like there are great retouchers out there, fantastic retouchers, and I'm not one of those. And so it's like when all the revisions keep coming back in, I'm just like start sweating because I'm like, oh crap, like I don't think I saved it that far back in order to get back to that point. I don't know. So it's it's a blessing and a curse sometimes, the retouching.
Definitely. And then also, I guess, just in terms of like the style and aesthetic of your work, is that something that kind of took you a while to kind of like find your voice as a photographer? And is it like this something that's continually evolving, or like how do you just kind of view the style and aesthetic of your work, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, I would think that it's continually evolving. I would hope, at least.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like for a while there, I was like in studio, like let's do it in studio, and now I'm very much like let's go outside and like use studio lights. Like every photo I have, every single one of them on my website is pretty much, I'd say 90 something percent lit,
Yep.
even if it's outdoors, even if I'm trying to make it not look lit. Like if there's a shot where you're like, oh, that might be like, natural light, it's not natural light.
No.
And I love that. I love using strobe, artificial light, bouncing, whatever. And so I feel like that's where it's sort of evolving, is that I want to get more, like I really do. I'm chasing like editorial work right now. And I've been able to get a couple shoots recently. Like I just did one at UCLA, which was great. And it was like using the environment and the architecture of UCLA, and but still lighting the subject the way I would technically if it was in studio, kind of thing. And just balancing the two, natural light and strobe and stuff. Like that's I love that. And yeah, just evolving too, and just like, I want the, the bigger jobs, and it's like I've always said that I'm never really satisfied. I have this bottle of wine that a buddy of mine gave me when we graduated at Cal Poly, and he said, "Open this bottle of wine on your first big shoot, you know? And I was like, oh, sick. Like, yeah, that's gonna be great. Like, it was an expensive at the time. I don't know. It's probably like, $60 or something. And, so then I did my ghost hunter shoot. Right. And I was like, that wasn't big enough. And then I did a shoot for like Direct TV, and like, no, that wasn't it. Fox, nope. I just kept going, and none of the shoots were big enough. And I think that's just me. I think that's just like, it's never going to, that bottle of wine is going to rot.
Yeah, you can't open it now. It's almost like it's motivation every time you look at it. Like, yo, step my game
probably,
up.
Yeah, it's probably terrible too. I mean, I probably didn't store it properly, and it's probably corked. But I have it, and it's that's kind of me. I think is like, I don't ever want to be like too complacent, and I feel sometimes I catch myself getting in those situations where, like, especially when I was going on a tear with Beats by Dre, for shoots, and I started to really I got comfortable and kind of lulled myself to sleep in terms of like not shooting test shoots, and not like, it was just kind of like, well, the work is just coming in. Like, I'm just gonna.
Or do you did you find yourself kind of like doing a lot of the same lighting setups? Because I definitely found myself getting in the routine, like especially the editorial. I kind of, you got your couple tricks in your bag that you do, but it's like, it's good to like switch it up. Was it kind of some of that, or is it more just?
Definitely. Yeah. And so I did a test shoot recently, and I told my assistant, like, pep talk, like, before the shoot, and I was like, listen, please help me, like, because if when I'm shooting in something, and it's like, if things like maybe aren't going right or not exactly how I envisioned it, I totally fall back into like this network gallery, like key light, fill, rim. And so I told him, and he was fantastic. I was like, you got it, man. Like, let's not do it. And I had to say, like, don't let me fall in a trap. Like, if it's not working, like, let's like keep trying something to make it work and not fall back into that trap. And really came away with some great, I'll be posting it pretty soon. And I'm like super proud of it. And that's felt great. Trying to, cause also, like, I feel like COVID has been a huge reset for me in a couple ways. Like, it kind of rewired the way I think and the way I, view like money and jobs and all that kind of stuff. But also, like, a lot of my clients that I had have they've moved on, right? Like, they've either been laid off, or they went to a different company, or they just left the industry. And so on the other side of all this like lockdown COVID stuff, I'm basically, I feel like I'm starting over.
Yeah.
And it's a blessing. Like, I'm really happy about it. But I feel like I'm going to be coming into the rest of this year like a newbie, like, just like, hi, I'm Tommy Garcia. I'm a photographer. I'd love to work for you, and all over again.
That's a good mindset to have. Like, you're like excited about it. A lot of people could probably view it the other way, like, oh man, I'm fucked or something. But you're looking at it like, all right, man, here's a new opportunity to work with some different people that I haven't worked with before, man. So
yeah, and I could be dumb and overly optimistic, but it's just how I'm looking at it. Is just like, I hit the reset button, my router wasn't working. I unplugged it, wait 30 seconds, plug it back in, and let's see what happens. And just gonna like really kind of full court press this marketing campaigns and reaching out, and like, relying on my personality and my work to woo the clients into hiring me.
Yeah, man. I mean, for me, I think that's like the funnest thing about being a photographer. Is like, every year I'm like, man, what's going to be coming down the line? Like, what photos am I going to make? Like, so, every year, like, hopefully like cool opportunities come up, and maybe make a couple cool pictures for a portfolio. And that's it. I mean, as you know, this business is crazy, dude. It's like hard to make a living, but for me, that's what kind of keeps me going. Like, it's just the excitement of like seeing what's going to come next,
Yeah, I mean, and like, and during COVID, I mean, it was the first time since I picked up that camera at the NASCAR race. It was the first time where I genuinely looked in the mirror and was like, I don't know, man, this might not be for you. Like,
yeah,
you might not survive this, and you might have to get your, real estate license. Or it was the first time that I ever thought about what is plan B, what are my options, where could I go, what could
Yep.
I do. And that's terrifying. That was like put me in a funk for a while. I remember mid COVID, towards the end of the summer, it was just like depressing. It
Oh
was
yeah,
like
man.
it hurt. And seeing people go back to work, because like entertainment is taking the longest to come back. So you start seeing like, and I got a few jobs here and there, kept me alive, and thankfully Bitcoin kept me alive. But seeing people work, like advertising shoots picking up, and seeing like photographers that are on my same roster working, and I'm not. It was like,
Oh yeah, man.
huge blow to the ego, and we didn't. Now, right? We have Clubhouse. If anybody's not on Clubhouse, you can find me and Alex on there way more than we probably should be.
Yeah, way too much.
But we didn't. I didn't have that, right? And so I didn't have anybody to like bounce things off of. I didn't have anybody to say like, dude, me too. Like I'm in that same boat,
Yeah.
And it's actually been really relieving and honestly inspiring to talk to you guys, and like, one, to have like photo buddies who just like get it and who just like understand. And then also like, like I just got the R5, and then I'm like, hey, Justin, right? Hey, how do I do this? Like, I don't know. This is a new feature for me. This is weird. And then he just like, boom, explains it.
Yeah.
And it's just like, and, then you look at other, the youngins who come in, like our buddy Travis.
Yeah.
And shout out Travis. And man, I would have killed to, at the beginning of my career, hop into a chat room with Jeff Lipsky and Tim Tatter and
Gary
Chris
Land.
Buck and Gary Land. And like, are you kidding me? Just the wealth of knowledge that floats around in any given room is pretty incredible. And so I hope that the youngins like Travis appreciate it, which I know he does. But so it's weird that something like that actually did sort of pull me out of a funk and get me like hyped again. Like I haven't been this excited about I really feel like, I don't think I took it for granted, I swear. But there's been the reset happen, and now I'm pumped. I wouldn't have bought the R5 if I didn't think that I had a future in this, right? I would have been like, ooh, save your money, you might need it for the bar exam or whatever. And so I'm just like, no, I'm like doubling down. Like, this is, I want to make this work, and I obviously I know I need to get better to get the better jobs and clients, and that's what I'm here for.
Yeah, definitely, man. It's just been good to, being able to talk to other photographers, because I think everyone at some point in their career is going to have points like, certainly I've had that too, where it's like, fuck, man, like the jobs aren't coming in. And it's like, is this going to turn for me? But yeah, I think, like you said, if you just keep shooting and keep putting it out there, eventually, stuff will come your way. And I feel like a lot of it for me is like momentum. If I do a test shoot, that kind of, once you kind of keep going, it's this momentum, and slowly stuff kind of starts to trickle in, and like, longer you can stay in the game, the better, but yeah, it is.
I mean, sometimes just staying around, right? Just being relevant and staying around, like, can get you clients or work or whatever. It's like, sometimes you're just playing, like, outlasting the other people game.
Yeah,
and,
man.
If you can do it, it can really work to your advantage.
Yeah, definitely, man. What's exciting? One series I wanted to talk to you about. This seems like an awesome project to work on. You got to do all these portraits for, I believe this was all for like Joe Buck's TV show, right?
Yeah. It was on. So it was actually on Audience Network, which is a DirecTV like proprietary channel. It was their channel.
Yep.
And so Joe Buck was the interviewer, and it was basically the idea behind the show was they only interviewed champions, right? Like, that was like, you could be like a sports legend, like Dan Marino, and like you kind of weren't invited to the show. It was all about people who won championships or at some point or another, and were retired. That was another thing.
Like Hall of Famers in whatever respective sport, pretty much.
Yeah. And so Joe was the interviewer, and I would shoot the unit work, which, unit is like on set, like shoot while they're filming, you're shooting stills, and I would shoot the unit, and then I would shoot portraits of the talent for, it was like basically a mini gallery. It was like they were going to use them for publicity, social, and like a key art, like some sort of billboard or something like that. And dude, every day it was just legends walking through the door, I mean, unbelievable sports athletes. I mean, that's why the show is called Undeniable, right? Because they're undeniably
The best.
fantastic, the best at what they do, and just the personalities that some of them had, and and as I'm a huge sports person. Anybody who knows me, basically, I'm like, my name is like synonymous with the Dodgers.
I thought you were a SF Giants fan, dude.
Whoa.
Don't bring it up. Don't bring it. Dodgers.
Whoa. I'm all right. I'm out of here. Yeah. So I absolutely hate the Giants more than anything on the face of earth. They're like evil incarnate. I love the rivalry though. It's actually really fun. To like mess with Giants fans. And I mean, dude, they had it over us for years, right? 3 championships in 5 years. Like, dude, as a Dodger fan,
I brought up I love it, dude. I love the passion, dude. You might
be as a Dodger fan. You just had to take it, and now we're the best ever, world champions. No, all right,
calm down, Tommy, calm down.
But yeah, so but obviously there's a passion for sports, and so being around all these athletes was just like it's unbelievable.
And with this, it seemed I really enjoyed the series. Did they kind of let you do your thing with lighting? Because it seemed like a little more like contrasty than some of your other work. I really enjoyed the lighting on these portraits.
Yeah, they basically just said like, have at it. And really the client, the shoots were structured really weird, like nothing I'd ever done before. Mm-hmm. Basically, because there was an interview and it was like a 3-hour interview sometimes, like with breaks and all that stuff. So the shoots were spread way out. So you only did 2 interviews a day. So the shoot would last like 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And you're just like, they were trying to make the schedule work or whatever. Mm-hmm. And so because of that, because the client was in New York, there was nobody on set with me. Wow. And luckily, I mean, the people who hired me for this I consider them friends. They're awesome. And I've known them for a long time. And they basically said, we trust you. Like, but their ask was gray seamless. That's all they wanted. Just shoot it on gray. We'll do whatever with it, And I just kind of took it on myself to be like, you know what? Like, I'm going to turn this gray seamless into 3 different setups. So I had the gray, and then I had so basically shooting them straight down the barrel on a gray seamless. Mm-hmm. And then I had a black like duvetine thing, and then I would just turn to the side. And now, so that light that was like here is technically now here, right? And so that's where the black background ones are a little bit more like sidey, moody. And then I had the white, which was a silk off to the side. And so basically, I mean, and each talent I got was probably, I mean, anywhere from 30 seconds to 4 minutes.
Wow, like, dude.
I did not have a lot of time. And so I was really trying to make the most out of these moments. Mm-hmm. And so it was like, gray seamless. Here's a chair. Shoot. So, okay. And black and now white. So
when you have a shoot like that, where you don't have a lot of time, how like calculated are you with like the posing? Like, do you have it like mapped out? Like when like Michael Phelps gets here, I want him to pose like this, or when Dennis Rodman gets here, or is it more kind of they show up and it's an organic thing, or how's that process when you don't have a lot of time?
Yeah, I mean, it has to be a little organic, right? Because some of them are not like either they hate photo shoots, or maybe they're like a little awkward, just because they're not used to being photographed for like in this way.
Yep.
And so so you kind of just have to let it play out. But there is definitely like an internal clock always running for me, where I'm just like, if I shoot too many frames, plus it's just redundant, right? If they're just standing there with their arms crossed, it's like, all right, well, I got like 6 frames of that. I mean, how many more can I possibly get of that like specific look, right? And so I have that like internal clock. And then there were props where they were like, we needed everybody to be in some sort of a chair situation, because when they would put them together in the comp, they wanted them to be, staggered and all that. So everybody had to have a chair shot, and then like turn to the left, turn to the right, no crotch, because everybody when they sit on a chair just wants to like spread eagle.
Yeah.
So you're like, let's tone that down.
So there's a lot to think about in a short amount of time when you're doing these things.
Yeah, and then you're like, oh, who are you shooting? Is it Joe Theismann? All right, throw him a football. Like, let's do a couple football shots. Pete Rose, throw him a baseball. And you know,
Yeah. Who's your favorite to work with out of this series? Obviously, there are short shoots, but was there one that kind of stuck out for you that was like either you're excited about or just kind of happy with how it came out? Or
yeah, there were a couple. I think my favorite like character was Terry Bradshaw.
okay,
Just lit up a room. I mean, that guy, he's just so charismatic, and you can't help but just laugh along with him or whatever. And then Ozzy Smith. So Ozzy Smith he was my favorite non-Dodger baseball player when I was younger. And he was the only person of all of these people that I asked for an autograph. I never like to do that. I just don't want to, I don't want to be that guy, or I don't know, whatever. But Ozzy Smith actually went to Cal Poly San Luis Obispo.
oh wow,
And the baseball field is named after him. And, and so he's to me, he's baseball, right? Like, that's who I think of. I love Ozzy. If he had been a Dodger, oh man, I would have changed my name to Ozzy Smith. But yeah, so I asked him for an autograph and he signed it. Ozzy Smith, Hall of Fame, the year he was inducted into the Hall of Fame. That baseball is a prized possession of mine now.
no, that's amazing, man. And like, what is it about like baseball? Because I was going to ask you about this other project you did. I'll bring it up here. Called, what is it? Somos los Doyers.
Yeah.
What is it about baseball and sports that you enjoy photographing? I guess the athletes, and I'll let me pull up this project because it was great. I believe it's all like Dodgers fans, right?
Yeah. So, what's cool too is like, you always hear about like personal projects, right? That's what like everybody sort of pounds into photographers' heads. Like, you got to do personal project.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew that, and I was just bad at it, or bad at like having an idea and then not executing it.
Yep.
And I don't know, for whatever reason, I had this idea to shoot portraits of Dodger fans and try to make them all in the same, like, the point really was how diverse the fan base is. It's like, rich, poor, it's every ethnicity you can think of, it's every walk of life. But what do we all have in common is we're Dodger fans. And not to say that other fan bases aren't diverse, for sure, like Yankees, whatever. It's just, I don't know, man, something about Dodger games. You go to a Dodger game, it is every walk of life. It's celebrities down in the rich seats. And yeah, I don't know. And then there's just so much like character, like this guy with his, lucha libre mask and stuff like that. And I also, I've always loved the doyers, right? So basically, in Spanish, G is pretty rough to say. It doesn't really show up very often in the middle of a word.
Yep.
So it's, in order to pronounce Dodgers, a majority like Spanish speaking person is going to say Doyers. And so it slowly evolved into this Doyers. And you basically, it's like the sort of like a Hispanic community sort of owning it and just being like, yeah, that's right, we say Doyers, what's up, and long story short, I'll make this quick, but basically it's not too different from the Dodgers themselves. So if anybody knows the history of the Dodgers, the reason why they're called the Dodgers is because they were from Brooklyn. And if you lived in Brooklyn, you were called a trolley dodger. And it was sort of like a derogatory remark. It meant you weren't as rich as the Manhattan crowd who rides the subway. If you were in Brooklyn, you had to dodge the trolleys and keep an eye out for trolleys. And so they were called the Trolley Dodgers. And then they changed their name to just the Dodgers. So basically, like, leaning into it and owning this sort of like what was once an insult, and now you like take ownership of it, and you're like, no, that's our thing. And that's kind of how Doyers is. It's like taking ownership of it and saying like, no, that's like, we say it different, so what? It means the same thing.
Yeah, no, these are incredible. So you basically set up a background like outside of the stadium and photograph these, or like what was kind of the process of putting these together?
Yeah, so I mean, the Dodgers would probably have kicked me out, so I couldn't do it in the stadium, but I set up close by. And I built this rig out of PVC pipe because I had this idea in my head of like, I wanted to make like a box because I love the way like the dark on the sides of their faces. If I put Duvetine here on this side, maybe like a silk on top to let some light in. And then basically the light is just, because these are all natural lit. So I guess I kind of lied when I said everything was strobed, because none of these are.
Oh, you're not even, you're not even lighting. Is there a strobe on the background, or that's just Photoshop?
No, so I bought this background from this, I don't know, some site, and probably manufactures them in China or something. But it's basically like a fabric that is a little transparent, and then the design of this fabric is blue that kind of vignettes a little bit.
Oh, all right.
But when the light is set right, or when the light is coming through the right way, it makes it look like it has like a halo glow behind them.
Yeah, I thought it was a grid. I thought you had like a little like mini C-stand with like a grid on the back or something.
Yeah, so it was kind of, and it made it a little bit easier to like, I build my little PVC rig and just like, clamp C-stands, hold it up nice and secure, and this whole PVC rig. And then to not have to worry about strobes or battery power or anything like that. And it started off one day I did it and I got like 8 people, and what's crazy is how many people said no. Okay. I didn't expect that. I don't know why, because I'm just like, I would approach people like, hey, I'm a professional photographer and I'm doing this project shooting Dodger fans. And everybody's first reaction is always like, what? Like, what do you get out of this?
What are you trying to sell me? What are you trying to sell me? Yeah.
How much does it cost? Well, where are you going to use them? Everybody's so guarded, and rightfully so. I don't know why I didn't even think about that going into it. But I got way more no's than I got yeses, which was pretty crazy. But then it sort of started to build a little bit more momentum. And then I started setting up at Philippe's, which is a French dip place here in LA, kind of downtown LA.
Yep.
And they let me set up in their parking lot before Dodger games. And a lot of people go to Philippe's before the Dodger game to grab a French dip. And that's when I really started getting a lot of people coming through.
Yeah,
and it was crazy.
Once other people start seeing other people do it, then they're like, oh, they're doing it, I'll do it. Like,
yeah. And people, like, once they found out too, like I wasn't charging for this. I just, retouch and just give them, send them the image, tag them in Instagram. I think then people got more like, oh, okay, like, yeah, I'll go get my picture taken. And yeah, it was just, it was a super cool project for me. But what's really rad is like, so everybody hounds on the personal projects, right? And then I did this, and then who hits me up? Freaking Nike, right?
Yeah.
Like Nike hits me up and says, we want to do a project with you, like your fan thing for the Dodgers before opening day. And then the world fell apart from COVID and that didn't happen. But
down the line,
there's power in that personal project.
But you got the photo. What was this for? Clayton Kershaw, legend. Like,
So this was for Hankook Tires. And when I was working for Anton Watts, one of his big clients was InOcean USA, which is an advertising agency. And they mostly handle Hyundai, right? But they also have Hankook Tires. And so I've had a relationship with them, and they've hired me for, because, Anton shoots cars. He doesn't really shoot people, like advertising type situations. And so InOcean has reached out to me to shoot their certain things. And then this shoot came up with Kershaw, and they were, it was kind of like I said, my name is synonymous with the Dodgers. It was kind of like a no-brainer.
Hyped. You're probably hyped when you got this.
Oh, I was so stoked. And I don't, usually they're usually triple bidding things and stuff like that. I don't even think they did that. I think they just kind of said like, it's Clayton Kershaw, like Tommy's going to shoot this kind of thing, which was pretty great. And yeah, so we were at Dodger Stadium, like ungodly early time in the morning to start. And, none of the crowd is in there. I photoshopped all, and I did all the retouching on these.
Oh, wow, man, you did a good job.
Thanks. Yeah, it was so hard. I was so proud of myself because I was like, oh my God, I don't know if this is going to look good. Maybe I should have outsourced this. But I remember sending one of the first run passes to Angie, Angie, and she was like, no, these look great. And I was like, oh my God, thank you.
So what did you obviously shot Kershaw and you had like a session, but then what did you go back during a game and this kind of like snap and then this kind of change the dimensions and all that?
So I'm a season ticket holder. And day games are not my favorite because it's just too damn hot. And my seats are in the sun and you just melt. So I just, I went to the game by myself and just walked around the stadium during a day game to try to match the lighting, and just shot as much of the crowd as I possibly could.
Yep.
And then just like warping them in there and like blurring them the right way and all that stuff. It was super fun. It was, and yeah, dude. So there's actually a moment, right? I have a picture of it too, but I was laying on the infield of Dodger Stadium, right in front of the mound. Kershaw standing on the mound, and I'm laying on the ground shooting him, looking up at him. And I stopped shooting for like an uncomfortable amount of time.
Yeah.
Like 20-30 seconds of no frames. And it was honestly like, I swear I had a moment like where I stopped, I looked, and I was like talking to myself, like, do you realize where you are right now? Like, do you realize what you're doing?
Fucking
like,
awesome.
Your whole life has been at this stadium. I've been a fan since when I was born. The first thing they put me in was a Dodger blanket. One of the earliest photos of me is in a Steve Sachs shirt, like Dodgers, it's always been my life. And so I'm on the ground looking at one of the best pitchers to ever play, the game, and happens to be a Dodger in Dodger Stadium. And it was a trip, dude. It was a super cool moment that like I'll never forget. And luckily the client was taking some like behind the scenes photos and kind of captured that almost exact moment.
Yeah, man. Yeah, all that hard work paid off, man. Every once in a while you get a good win, and it's like, get that job, man. All that stress, the nights when you're like, fuck, it's gonna work, and it's like, all right, man, this is great.
Paid off, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, it was just to have those images and like to shoot that job and to get paid, handsomely, because it's advertising for Hankook tires, and it was a great job for me, financially even. What a crazy world. That's like too good to be true, it feels Definitely. Like.
Yeah, man. Well, I guess to wrap up, Tommy, man, we could talk for another 10 hours, but
I know.
What's next, man? Like, any goals for your work moving forward, or anything like kind of bucket list stuff you want to shoot, or what are you hoping to work on the next few months or years?
Yeah, definitely. So it's really, for me, I think it's all about like scaling up, right? And going after those bigger clients. Like, everything is streaming now, and I've shot a few times for some of the big streaming companies, but not enough. And I really want to I want my name to be like solid with them. Like, hey, this guy, he handles the shoot. Like, you got nothing to worry about when you hire him. And so getting those bigger clients, and I've always wanted to shoot movie posters. I'm hoping that those, I know it's kind of more of like a unit thing now, but like I've been dying to shoot movie posters. And it's just, so everything really is just onward and upward, and in that sort of like reset too. It's like that feeling of like, I want new things. Like, sure, I'm probably going to shoot pretty similar-ish stuff moving forward, but like, let's get like the bigger talent and the bigger clients and the bigger budgets, and like really get some of the like jobs with like big ad buys where it's like billboards and it's all over
that
the
Marvel
place.
money, man. Let's get you that Avengers shit right there.
That's what I'm talking about. And and that test shoot that I did recently that I'll post pretty soon. I mean, you'll see where I'm heading.
I'm excited, man.
Well, and so fingers crossed. Every finger, all of them, toes, everything, cross everything. I need all the help I can get.
Well, Tommy, man, always a pleasure. And for people listening, if they want to check out more of your work, where's the best place for them to go?
You find me on Instagram at I am Tommy G. IAMTOMMYG. That's my everything, right? That's my Clubhouse. That's my Twitter. That's my Instagram. Everything is I am Tommy G, because I am Tommy G. And my website, I'm kind of one of those weird ones who I don't post all of my work on my social media, and I probably should be better about that. So moving forward, I probably will. But yeah, find me on Instagram. But my website, www.iamtommyg.com. And let's work.
Perfect. Well, thanks, Tommy. And when I come to LA, man, we're going to a Dodgers game, dude.
Oh, bro, I'm gonna make you pizza. We're doing it all, man.
All right, cool, man. Well, I'll cut it there. So there you have it. That was the Tommy Garcia interview. Just want to thank Tommy so much for taking the time to come on the podcast. It was a real pleasure talking to him about his work and everything he's accomplished within his career. Just a really amazing photographer, incredible at lighting. Definitely go check out Tommy's website at imtommyg.com, as well as definitely go follow him on Instagram at imtommyg. He's always posting up cool work and different projects he's working on up there, so definitely go give him a follow. And also, as I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, today's episode, if you go to pickdrop.com, you'll get 3 months of the PickDrop file transfer tool for free when you sign up at pickdrop.com. All you got to do is enter the promo code PhotoBanter, one word. So definitely go check it out. Go check out PickDrop. Like I said, I've been using it for months now. I really enjoy it. Kind of helps me kind of keep all my files in one place. I can easily access them on the go on my mobile and download them. And it's really been easy. All my clients have been using it, downloading their files, and really positive response, and they've been enjoying it too. So definitely go check it out. And like I said, remember to go enter the promo code PhotoBanter, one word, when you sign up for PickDrop at pickdrop.com. And as always, thanks so much for listening, and take care.